Okay, well, welcome to the Special Fathers Network Zoom call on education beyond high school. And we've got some very talented members of the Special Fathers Network Mentor Fathers group with us this evening. And before we get started, I'll just mention that the Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising kids with special needs. And part of what we do is match more seasoned dads with the dads that are close to the beginning of their journey, raising a child in a perfect world with the same special need. And one of the things that we do is we interview dads for the podcast, now up to, I think it's episode number 120. So we've interviewed well over 100 dads, and we don't have it all covered, but these are some of the most inspirational fatherhood stories. And we're really fortunate today to have 4 of those dads that are podcast dads, that's what we think of them as, to share some of their insights about this important topic of education beyond high school. Because all of us know that once your child reaches age 22, they're sort of on their own. And it's a big conundrum for most families on what their child's going to do beyond their high school experience. How are they going to gain some independence? And what are they going to do to maybe support themselves or have some level of independence? So what I'd like to do is introduce each of the dads that's with us, have them make some brief personal remarks about their family, about their work experience, and the child's special need or special needs in some cases. And then we'll come back after the brief self-introductions, and we'll have them each talk about their own experience, either from a personal and or professional perspective as relates to education beyond high school. So if we do this in alphabetical order, Rick Bovell, you would be up first.
Well, good evening. My name is Rick Bovell. I am the husband to Michelle, and we have 5 sons. 2 of them are on the autism spectrum and 1 with ADHD. They range in age from 16 to 26, and we're just a great, loving family. We enjoy each other.
Thank you, Rick. Skip, you would be up next.
Thank you, David, and thank you for all the work you've put into creating this just wonderful forum. My name is Skip Gianopulos, live in the Barrington area, relatively close to David. We have 4 girls, and 2 of our kids, our second and fourth daughters, have special needs. Jessica, daughter number 2, has Down syndrome, and then our fourth daughter, Cassidy, has both Down syndrome and autism. And they are ages 19 through 13. So I got the chance to quarantine with 5 women, 4 teenagers, and it was a lot of fun,
Glad you could be with us. Thank you. Kelly, over to you.
My name is Kelly Moynihan. I live in Naples, Florida right now. I'm a retired environmental scientist and socioeconomic advisor for ExxonMobil Corporation. Canadian by heritage, but am now a dual U.S. Canadian citizen. I emigrated here to Naples from Houston, Texas, where we lived for over 20 years. I have 3 daughters ranging in ages from 35 to 29, and our middle daughter, Nikki, is 32, and she has Down syndrome.
Thanks for being with us, Kelly. Brian, over to you.
My name is Brian Page, and I live in the suburbs of Chicago in Homewood, Illinois. Been married, it'll be 34 years to my wife, Natalie. Just as a sidebar, she's in education as a Vice President of Academic Affairs for a community college. And then I also serve as a Senior VP for a special needs college. We have 3 kids. Our oldest is 27, I believe, and married, lives in Dallas. My middle son is the one who has special needs. He was born, had a bleed in his head, had to have a VP shunt placed. We kind of refer to him as our miracle child. And then we have a daughter who is a junior at Wheaton College.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all for those brief self-introductions. Now what I'd like to do is go in the same order, just because, and have you each discuss what your educational experience was through high school. You know, were they mainstreamed? Were they in special ed classes, et cetera? And then what your experience has been beyond high school. So, Rick, back to you.
Certainly. Well, my sons were homeschooled. So through high school, they were homeschooled. The older one took some online classes through high school, and his route was interesting. So he went to community college, a local community college. And then last year, he started at TIU. They have a program called the Access Program, where students with ASD get support to help them go through college. So this is a standard college program at Trinity International University, and there's an extra fee for the Access Program. He is studying media sciences. And my second son, he went to the RISE program at Judson University. Skip will probably be able to tell you a whole lot about that, as his wife was one of the instrumental ones who started that program. He started that program in 2017, graduated 2 years later. His focus was on music and art, really enjoyed that program. And so that's it for the education through high school into college. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Great, thanks, Rick. And I remember being in a RISE event, and one of the gifts was little packages of cards with very creative artwork on them. And I'm pretty confident that was your son that was the artist. Am I correct?
It was his work.
Okay. Well, Skip, over to you.
Yes, and yeah, it was those were amazing pieces of art, and I also noticed one over Ricardo's, kind of on the background there on the wall. So, Ricardo, you've got an extraordinarily talented son, and I'm sure if Gail was on this call, she would love to say hello to you. So, greetings. In any event, my youngest child with special needs is 13. She's still in middle school, and we've had a very good experience with the Barrington School District in terms of, getting all the necessary resources for our kids. I feel like it's been a very good partnership. It's like any partnership, you do have to work on it, and kind of advocating for your kid, regardless if your child has special needs or not, is an important part of, making sure they've got the right resources for them. And in our case, we felt like we're very blessed to have a great team of people through the Barrington School District, District 220. So Jessica, our oldest, is a senior this year, and we're likely going to wind up going through next year, maybe going into a transition program, which will be largely vocational training. And then we're hopeful that Jessica will become part of the RISE program that Ricardo referenced a little bit earlier. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about that later. But that is the kind of the educational route that our kids have gone through so far.
Okay, thanks, Skip. Kelly, back to you.
Yes, our daughter Nikki had a very good education in Sugar Land, Texas, a suburb of Houston when we lived there. The Fort Bend Independent School District was our local school district. So she went to a regular high school in a resource room, but was mainstreamed to the extent possible in kind of non-academic classes like PE and other classes that we typically associate with integration. The resource room was outstanding for her there. And as part of that, they also were placed in jobs both within the school and outside the school to learn employment skills. I'm glad to hear that. They also have transition programs elsewhere in America. When Nikki finished her up to grade 12, when she graduated, she then went to a transition program at a different local high school for 3 more years until she was 22. learning again, vocational readiness, life skills enhancement, socialization, whatever. And again, it was an outstanding program. So she graduated when she was 22, and then our journey began as far as her ongoing education and also working. And I can talk more about that later.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. Back to you, Brian.
Well, our son, Benjamin, is our middle son, as I mentioned. And so he's 26. He's kind of been a mixed bag. So he was in the public school system, you know, as David's aware of, because we consider him to be kind of our miracle kid. We never even knew if he would end up reading or writing, you know, being able to walk or talk. The diagnosis was very grim. So when he got to the place that he could start actually going to school, riding on the bus, that was just a phenomenal story for our family. So he spent time kind of going through elementary in the public school system, all the way up until junior high. And then we were told about a special needs school. That was a private school that was kind of a feeder for our public high school system. And so he started going there, graduated from there. We had a phenomenal, similar to what Skip said, phenomenal experience, great support, teachers that, I mean, I think a lot of times they talk about people that are on the front lines as heroes. You definitely have to think about the special education teachers and administrators that, you know, are caring for, you know, all of our kids. And so he graduated from high school and then went on to a special needs college, which I can share about later. And then similar to what Rick was saying, he was able to graduate in 2019, which was one of the most emotional experiences I think we ever had, when you're not even thinking, you know, I'm sure Rick and his wife would relate that you never would imagine that kind of day would even come. Separate plug, RISE is a phenomenal program. So I just would like to add that as well. We're familiar with a lot of the staff and people there at Judson. So that's all.
Brian, thanks for sharing. One of the highlights that I remember in the interview that you did for your podcast, I don't know where it ranks, but when Ben won the race, I think it was a Special Olympics race. And I know it's going to digress a little bit, but I'd like you to share that with our listening audience as well.
Well, you're going to make me start laughing even thinking about that, David. As I mentioned, because, you know, the doctors initially had said that Benjamin was never even going to walk. And so he ended up getting involved in Special Olympics when he was in school. So he was running a race, and I was sharing with David, the interesting thing is, which I still don't get, why they were using starter pistols at the time when you've got a kid that is sensory struggling. And so they fired the pistol off at the starting line, and my wife and I are there with my oldest son and my daughter, and Benjamin just froze. He just kind of put his hands over his ears, and we're like, Ben, run, run, run. So he finally takes off running. Of course, the kids are all ahead of him, and then he starts just turning on high gear, ends up passing all the kids up, wins the race. We're all celebrating and jumping and laughing, and, you know, I'm crying because I can remember the doctor saying, you know, he'll probably never walk, Mr. Page, but any wins you get is going to be great. And so while we're all celebrating and, you know, cheering and hugging, someone comes over like, Mr. Page. And I said, I know we won. Isn't that great? And he said, no, he's still running. And so I looked up and Benjamin's all the way on the other side of the track. And I'm like, oh no. And so for all of us as dads, then I take off running. I'm thinking I'm not supposed to be in Special Olympics. So I'm running on the track, trying to catch up to him, finally catch up to him right before another race is starting, going in the other direction. And I'm like, Ben, you won. He was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so we finally made it back to the medal stand, which was great. So he got his gold medal and got a chance to go down state. But I think I might have pulled a muscle. I was burnt out after that. So thank you, David, for setting me up.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Brian. I love that story. Okay. Well, we've provided some backgrounds for each of the dads that are participating tonight, not only about their families, but about their child and their child's education up to, but not past high school. So what I'd like to do now is dig in and talk about the various programs that each of your students, each of your children have participated in. And you can go into whatever detail, and we we can mix it up as far as going back and forth now. Rick, back to you.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to really commend what Brian said, because I remember when the doctors told about my son, my second born. He said, there's nothing you can do. None of the therapies are going to work. You just got to kind of put him in a program. And back then there was something called ABA, and ABA was kind of just like dog training. It has changed a lot since then, but it was just like dog training. It was like, there's nothing you can do. And this young man last semester was on the dean's list, at his school, in graphic design. So it's just a testimony to what God can do, and just faithful parenting, and just an awesome mom. He's got an awesome mom. So my oldest, as I mentioned, he is at TIU. He spent some time at Rock Valley. And, while he was at Rock Valley College here in Rockford, Illinois, he took some classes and he worked hard, but it was difficult for him. Because of some of the struggles that he has, just focusing and making sure that he is on task all the time. So after he finished at Rock Valley, or actually took some courses at Rock Valley, we learned about the Access program at TIU. And we went there, visited the program, and recognized, hey, there's some supports here for kids who can't really focus themselves all the time. So we went there, we spoke to the administrator there and said, you know what, this could be a good program. We should try this out. So he tried it out. He made some great friends in and outside of the program. And in addition to that, the support that he got, the weekly study groups, all of those kind of things, he just blew his classes out. I think he probably got all A's or all A's and a B or something, his 2 semesters on campus. So it was just amazing. It's just amazing what can happen when the right supports are in place.
How about your younger son, Rick?
With Daniel, it was going through the RISE program was excellent. My wife found out about it on Facebook in January. And when we found out about it, we thought, oh, the program's going to be closed. But we went there and we kind of showed off some of his artwork. By the way, this is not his artwork. This is his younger brother's artwork. But showed off some of his artwork, some of his piano playing, and they said, yeah, we want to have him in our program. So he started off in August 2017. Now the RISE program, it's more of a college experience. It's not fully a full-blown college program where you'll graduate with a diploma, but you do get a certificate of completion, and you do get focus classes for you. I know there's some students who are focused on finance or economics. Daniel was focused on art, so both music and piano. So he got some good courses there. He got to play in the piano ensemble there, and he loved living on campus. And one of the great things about the RISE programs is the mentors that are there. The mentors come in and really help the students participate in all the activities of the school, know how to live on campus, get them related to other people. And the school changed. I really believe that the integration of students with disabilities really helped that campus to flourish. And even the president of the campus, when he saw the chapel on campus and the freedom with which the kids with disabilities worshiped, he was amazed, he was blessed, and the whole campus was blessed through them. And Daniel really grew. His maturity really came out during his time on campus. So much so that he's was able to get art projects. I mean, he actually sells some of his art right now. He's working outside at a ministry called Inspired Coffee up in Wisconsin. He also had some some internships on campus working at the library in TJ Maxx. So the program at Rise really helped him to grow and develop, and we're still seeing the benefits from it, even though it was a couple of years ago.
Rick, thank you again for sharing. Very inspiring. Skip, do you know anything about the RISE program that you can share with us? And the backstory. Let's do the backstory as well.
Yeah, thanks, David. And yeah, what I would say is that, you know, I'll certainly happy to talk about it, but it was really the kind of dream child of my wife. It was her vision and, you know, her tenacity and perseverance that, you know, brought that kind of dream into reality. You know, what I would say is that, you know, both me and Gail, we had a great college experience. And college, you know, for most of us anyways, wasn't just about the education. It was about the experience. It's about the relationships. It's about being on your own for the first time. It's about being in a dormitory and, you know, having to make some of those kind of life decisions that you had your parents make for you up until that point. And so as, you know, one of the things that we had kind of, I'll say, grieved early on with, you know, for our kids with special needs is their, you know, maybe their inability to take advantage of those kinds of experiences. And as Gail was kind of thinking about that, well, really, why does that need to be? Why can't these kids have that kind of college experience? And so, you know, as we kind of started dreaming about that, Gail, you know, took that idea and as that kind of percolated for a number of years, actually, as she was journaling through, you know, those thoughts and ideas, you know, it was probably back in around 2015 or so, we approached the president of Judson University, a man by the name of Dr. Gene Kroom. And, you know, I'll never forget the line that he had shared after Gail had presented this vision to him. Gene looked at Gail and just said, "I don't know why we're not doing this already." And so, you know, it was great to have kind of the full backing and experience of the college president kind of going into it. And like any good, you know, executive, he says, "It's a fantastic idea. All you need to do now is raise the money to make it happen." So, you know, that took a little bit of time, but we hosted a couple of events, and really, you know, 2 events, and we kind of invited our kind of network of people. We shared the vision for this, and we had developed kind of a budget for what we thought this first year would look like, what we would need to raise in order to get the program to the point where it could be self-sufficient, meaning that the kids coming into the program would be able to pay tuition and support themselves through it. And through those 2 events, we raised almost the exact amount that needed to be raised in order to get this off the ground. There are so many, you know, I'll just call them divine intervention type stories that took place along the way, and you know, even including hiring our first executive director, program director. You know, it just was it seemed a very ordained path from vision to reality along the way. And so, yeah, so Daniel is, I believe Daniel was part of the first class of students that matriculated through the program. And
That's right.
yeah, just and just to kind of expound a little bit on the you know, the comment that Ricardo had mentioned about changing the campus. And you were probably there, Ricardo, but I was, you know, that first chapel was the fall of the year where this first class of RISE students had come through, and the RISE students actually, you know, the chapel was kind of centered around the RISE program, introducing the students that were part of the RISE program. And one of the most, you know, I'll say kind of inspirational things that, for me anyways, that happened during that was that, you know, they asked, and it was a packed room. They asked who has, you know, had interaction with, one of these students up here on stage, and they asked a number of questions, and by the end of the questioning, who's been positively impacted by the RISE program, everybody in the entire room was standing. It has had a significant and profound impact on the students of that campus. And, I just think the way that it was kind of integrated into the student body, Ricardo had mentioned that there are student mentors that come alongside these RISE students. And, these are kids that aren't necessarily special ed students, majors. There are architecture students that are serving as job coaches and student life mentors to these RISE kids that are going to take that experience, and they're going to have that experience for the rest of their life. They might be running some architecture firm 20 years from now, and their experience of working in close contact and day-to-day basis with some of these kids with special needs, that will impact them, who they are as a person, who they are as a business person, who they are as an architect, irrespective of what trade, profession, or business they wind up in. That experience is going to be with them forever. So I can't say enough good things about the program. My wife is much more involved. She is, I'll say she's probably a 25-hour-a-week type volunteer in the program, not an employee. She's just very passionate about it. And, she is, one of the things that she's looking to do now is perhaps take that idea, that concept, and try to replicate that in other parts of the country. We've had people, coming from as far away as California, all over the country, basically. And, there ought to be more programs like this. So I don't want to monopolize the conversation. So I'll turn it back over to David, and, certainly happy to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Skip. So our listeners or watchers have an idea of the RISE program, since you and Rick both talked about it. What's the scope or the scale of the program? How many students are involved? And then go into a little bit more detail about what they're actually doing on campus, beyond the mentors coming alongside them.
Yeah, so there is capacity for about 12 students per year to come into the RISE program. It's a 2-year program with an optional kind of invitation-only 3rd-year opportunity. So the reason that it is as limited as it is the RISE program is actually the largest employer of college students on the campus, meaning that we've got, we employ college students to give RISE students rides to and from work, to be, kind of a work job coach, if you will, academic coach. So there's a lot of traditional Judson students that are employed by the RISE program. So there are, with it being a 2-year program, there's obviously 24 kids typically on campus throughout the course of the year that are part of the RISE program, and just continue to have a positive impact on the overall student body. The 3rd-year program that I mentioned, which is by invitation only, I think we're looking to expand that, but there are some student apartments on campus where the 3rd-year program is a little more vocational oriented. Students do still participate in campus life, but it is more focused on building skills of independent living and job-related skills.
Okay, thanks, Skip. That's very interesting. Kelly, I'm wondering if you can share what your daughter's experience was in her post-high school experience.
Sure. So our daughter, Nikki, was not able to have a formal post-high school educational experience. So there was a program at the local community college in Fort Bend County, Wharton Community College, but we just didn't feel that Nikki would be able to benefit or thrive in that program. Some of her colleagues with special needs did take that program with limited success. So I would say that my daughter Nikki, since she graduated from her formal education when she was 22, has gone to the University of Experience. And so our objective was for her to be able to be to have a positive and value-adding experience and make a contribution in the community. And so that was our goal. And when we lived in Texas before we moved here, she was able to do that two ways. The first thing is that she was able to be part of the Brookwood community in Brookshire, Texas. Some of you have heard of Brookwood. Brookwood is a for-profit entity. It takes no government money. And she did two things there. She worked in their greenhouse. Brookwood is the largest grower of poinsettias in Texas. It produces about half the Christmas poinsettias consumed in Texas. So they have huge, big greenhouses, and she worked in one of these greenhouses growing poinsettias. They also have a store there, garden center, and she worked in the garden center kind of in the shoulder season. Brookwood also has a number of workshops where they produce household goods for sale, knickknacks and whatever. They're very high quality. And so she did a number of ceramic products and leather products in a workshop. So that was highly successful. We had to pay for that. It wasn't a free thing for us. So that was something that you needed to have means to be able to benefit from that program, unfortunately. One day a week as well, she used to volunteer at a senior center run by the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, and it was called the Mamie George Center, and she worked in the kitchen there in the senior center, bussing tables. And my wife also at the same time worked in the food pantry at that center as well. So the two of them volunteered on Fridays every lunchtime from say 10 until 2. Nikki worked in the cafeteria, and Kathy worked in the food bank. And that experience was facilitated by the ARC of Fort Bend County. So we originally had some support, jobs coaching support, until Nikki became proficient in her tasks, and the people there got to know her and were able to be comfortable giving her direction and giving her the support that she needed. So after a while, the job coach went away and Nikki was relatively independent with direction from the staff there. Then I retired in 2016, late 2016, and we moved here to Naples, Florida, with nothing here. With just a blind hope that we would be able to find something. And we actually even contemplated trying to set up a satellite Brookwood entity here in Southwest Florida. But as you're talking about divine intervention, we experienced that here as well. There was an organization in Southwest Florida in Collier County where we live. It used to be called the Foundation for the Developmentally Disabled, FDD. And this organization has been around for about 30 years, started as a parent support group and has grown and expanded since then. 2 or 3 years ago, FDD rebranded itself and is now called the Star Ability Foundation, where the focus is not on disability, but ability. And I'm actually fortunate to now be on the board of directors of Star Ability. In early 2017, Star Ability recognized, as we've all talked about, that something needed to be done about the cliff that our sons and daughters experience when they turn 22 years old. It was recognizing this need that they started a program called the Trailblazer Academy. And the Trailblazer Academy is a day program for intellectually and developmentally disabled adults from when they age out of school until whenever. So we have people in the program from 22 until about 70 years old. And this program, it runs from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And right now there's about 50 participants in that program in 3 groups. And the program it has 3 main foci: community service and volunteerism, life skills enhancement, and socialization. And so their whole day is basically out in the community, volunteering at the SPCA, at equestrian centers. They work in hotels and restaurants. They work special events, for example, at churches or other community situations. They do fun things like they go bowling, they play bingo, they play basketball. And then they also work on life skills like math skills and money skills and timekeeping and grooming and all those kind of things. Well, lo and behold, this is an unbelievably fantastic program championed by a young woman by the name of Madison McNally. Basically, the demand has outstripped the supply, and we have at least as many people on our waiting list to be trailblazers as are actually in the program right now. So it all was well until mid-March of this year. And when we were forced to shut down the Trailblazer Academy, Madison and her team of instructors, Trailblazer instructors, quickly pivoted into a virtual mode, and they created the virtual Trailblazer Academy. And this is something that I want to tell you about because it is available to anybody in the world who would like to participate in this for a small fee. This is a program that operates by Zoom like we're doing right now. And on Monday to Friday, and also one time on Saturday, from 9 in the morning until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, they have a number of programs, lessons, participation opportunities for them to continue to work in those areas, except going outside the home for volunteerism. So they again try and enhance academic skills like money and math, simple arithmetic. They still do fun things. They play bingo. They have karaoke. They do health and wellness. So my daughter had a fitness lesson this afternoon. They do Tai Chi. They do improv. They also do things like health and wellness. So during the pandemic, in the early days, they spent time teaching people how to wash their hands and how to put a mask on and how not to touch your face. And so important survival skills, basically, what social distancing meant. And so they did that as well. And now they're talking about mental health and how are you feeling? And are you feeling sad because you have to stay in your house and can't go and see your friends and whatever? So the whole health and wellness aspect has really been built on as well. We have programs that we have an online photography club. We have an online cooking club. We have an online garden club. So the diversity that is offered primarily on Zoom, but a little bit also on Facebook, has been unbelievably fantastic and has allowed the people in the program, as well as all those on the waiting list, to be able to be fully involved during this very trying and tragic time in our life. And we now have people who are remotely participating from all over America, from Utah and Ohio and Michigan and in the Toronto, Ontario, Canada area. So this was an opportunity for our organization to develop this virtual program. And even though one day we're going to be back to our in-person programming, we are going to continue to offer the virtual Trailblazer Academy because it's been so successful and so impactful. And this is an opportunity that I'd like to share with people throughout America and throughout North America, that you're welcome to participate in the virtual Trailblazer Academy sponsored by the Star Ability Foundation. And I can give you all the details about how to do that. The tuition is $75 a week for 4 to 6 hours of programming per day.
Kelly, wow, that is fabulous. Thank you for sharing. I like what you said about the School of Experience, perhaps also known as, or formerly known as, the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for the Star Ability program, because that's, after all, how you and I came in contact with one another. And we'll definitely include information in the show notes about the Trailblazer Academy, as well as the virtual Trailblazer Academy. So thanks again for sharing.
Sure.
Ryan, back to you now.
And I love hearing all this. It's like participating is terrific. In Benjamin's case, the big question was really trying to get him to some level of acclimation with everybody else. We wanted him to be mainstreamed, so we were trying to figure out ways to really do that. It's just interesting as we watched him kind of go from, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the elementary school level, then eventually going on to high school, and then, to a special needs college. It was pretty phenomenal. I think other people were kind of talking about, divine intervention. That's really the same thing that we really experienced. I think our goal was, having a son that, has a shunt, and you're concerned about if there was going to be a shunt malfunction. And he had many times when, you're doing helicopter rides that are not for fun, going to hospitals. The great thing is to get to a place where, we having a younger daughter and an older son, and him being the middle child, he was able to go ahead and kind of almost be pampered by everybody. Everybody would swoop in and really do things for him, which was good on one hand, but the downside was it meant that we were stifling him to a certain extent. So in my case, and I know, of course, Rick and Skip can appreciate, I'm very familiar with Judson. So I had years ago working for, near where David is, was working at Harper College, and ended up being recruited to come work at Shepherd's College. At the time, Benjamin had already started at Shepherd's. And what I love about what Judson does, similar to Shepherd's, is that sometimes people will go ahead and say like, oh, you guys are competing with one another. There is no competition when you're in the special needs world, because the goal, and I loved hearing just what Skip's wife was talking about doing, is that you want to expand so you can serve more people, give more individuals the opportunities like this. And for us, Shepherd's College is different. But what Judson was kind of cool, because I've worked closely with Kathy Lambert. Kathy has provided counsel to us. I've gotten a chance prior to COVID. I was supposed to personally do a tour at Judson with Janine, and I've talked with Drew, so I know some of their people. I've been on campus before, and very similar that, our goal is we look at appropriate independence. How do you take students and really recognize the fact, kind of our motto is that, every person is created by God, for a purpose and on purpose, that we don't look like at any student is really an accident. And so, when we found out about Shepherd's College, I was actually traveling and was in Arizona, and my wife called me and said, hey, one of the people at the high school, one of the individuals that kind of helps semi like as an aide, had happened to mention some different programs that were out there, and Shepherd's College happened to be one. We had, I don't know at the time if we had heard about RISE, but others had told us about RISE and the program that was going on at Elgin. And so you started hearing about these different things. And we were a family that which sounds very limiting, never thought Benjamin could go to college. And so you're not even looking at those options. But what was great is that we decided we'd go visit Shepherd's. And again, similar to what, RISE and Judson and programs around the country are doing, is that you see that these students all get a chance to come together and be with other individuals like them and be challenged. Shepherd's trains in culinary, horticulture, and technology. It's a 3-year program. What Rick said is the same for us. It's an accredited program, but you're not walking away with a 4-year engineering degree. I mean, they're basically getting a certificate, But when you see these students have an opportunity to go through and, live in dorms, so we start out, they live in dorms. Then as they grow in independence, then they move into our on-campus homes. And then the third year, then they move into on-campus apartments. So it's all designed to continue to provide additional appropriate independence. And we say appropriate independence because it's not the same for everybody. I mean, in Benjamin's case, we thought if he could go ahead and make some meals for himself, and my wife was a stickler. You're gonna make your bed up every day. You're gonna put your clothes away. You're gonna shower. You're gonna do all the things, all your chores. So he didn't get any slack on some of those things. But Shepherd's kind of helped him really go to another level. And I think that's a great thing when you're seeing kids that are coming from around the country that get an opportunity. And sometimes it's not so powerful just for the students, it's so powerful for the parents, because we get a chance, like all of us have experienced. You go to college and you almost take it for granted. But then I know in Benjamin's case, people would say like, well, what are you doing after high school? And he's like, I'm going to college. It wasn't about what college he was going to, it was the fact that he was going to college. So for us, our experience, and to this day, what Kelly was saying, like with his daughter, we're familiar with Brookwood. We're now looking at opportunities after COVID that he could actually be involved in addition to working, because we want him to have the fullest life possible. But I think that's the challenge that so many of us as dads and parents, and all of you are probably like me, I don't know where we'd be if it wasn't for my wife. I mean, I heard it from Rick and Skip. I already know about with David. Kelly, I don't know your wife as of yet, but I think everybody is probably at the same stage that, they're the unsung heroes behind the scenes that kind of keep the train on the tracks. We just kind of have to make sure we don't screw it up, and derail it somehow. So, for me, I love the whole aspect of special needs and special education. And as I said, not competing, working together, knowing the other resources and things that are out there, because so many families like ours, my wife's saying is that you don't know what you don't know, but then she has a piece that adds to that until you knew that you didn't know. Because really in the special needs world, somebody will go ahead and say like, oh, Skip, your daughter has special needs. Well, you should look into Special Olympics. Well, Special Olympics isn't for everybody. And then somebody else will tell you another program. And then someone tells you, here's a program for kids that have autism. And here's a program that has something for Down syndrome kids. And there's so many things out there. And so I commend David that we need to be able to come together and share what things are available, because a lot of times you're just in the dark and you don't know that there's something down in Naples, Florida that you could participate in virtually, and people are like, oh, I need something like that. So our family is really, really grateful. We've been blessed beyond imagination to see some of the things that have happened. And I'm just grateful that people seem to now get the fact, like a guy like David that doesn't even have special needs in his own family, that helped to give a platform so other people can know. We don't want all of these programs to be best kept secrets.
Ryan, thanks for sharing. And you don't know what you don't know. I like that. So with the remaining few minutes that we have, I'd like to just go around the horn one more time. And I'd like each of you to share, beyond what you've already shared, if there's a piece of advice to that dad who's watching this, who might have a child who's a teenager, not quite 22 yet, or maybe they're past 22 and whatever they've been pursuing hasn't been a good fit for them. What advice would you each offer? Rick, why don't you go first?
Well, before I offer a piece of advice, I just want to mention we visited Shepherd's College. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. And I think right when we got there, they were just about to start the technology program. So I'm so glad that it's taken off. So that's fantastic. In terms of advice, the first piece of advice, pray. Spend time praying for your kids. Not only that they would continue to grow and develop and that you'd find the right programs, but that you would grow and develop in understanding who they are and being able to serve them as dad. Number two, listen to your wife. There is so much lots of information that she's gathering. She's got this awesome intuition. It is there to serve you and your family. Engage in spending time with your wife, listening to your wife. She can help you and your family go so far. And the third thing is just keep your eyes and ears open. Most of the things, the programs that we've been able to be involved in, TIU, RISE program, and right now Inspired Coffee, which is hosted by Inspiration Ministries up in Wisconsin. It's information that has just come by through emails, through friends, through things on Facebook. So pray, listen, watch.
Pearls of wisdom. Thank you, Rick. Back to you, Skip.
Thank you. So the RISE program, which actually stands for Road to Independent Living, Spiritual Formation, and Employment. I think those are the three things that kind of tend to rise to the top of what you really want for your kid. You really, if I could give advice, and my kids are still relatively young, I think our kids have a kind of a tendency to rise above what we might have thought possible, years ago. And so to kind of take the limits off and to dream big in terms of the future for your kids, I think is, a word of wisdom. I just, I look back and just over the kind of my short life, and kind of the progress that I've just seen, over the last 50 plus years of, how kids with special needs were treated when I was in school versus how they're treated today, and hopefully how they're going to be treated in the future. I think our kids have a wonderful, opportunity to live full lives, and to keep investigating those opportunities. I do, we've mentioned, kind of in terms of a traditional nuclear family and the role that the wife would traditionally play. We've had kids coming through the RISE program that are, where the dad is a single parent, and and there may be some people in the, watching this video that are in that role. And I would just encourage you there too, that, it may be a little extra work, but don't give up on your kid, and dream big, and, be excited for their future.
Thanks, Skip. And back to you, Kelly.
Yeah, I would just like to echo some of the other sentiments that have already been brought forward. And I would say keep the faith. It's not easy. It is full of peaks and valleys. But in the end, you're going to get to a good place. And there are many people along the way that are going to help you, and that you yourself would have never, ever met these people, these wonderful people, these caring people, these friendly people, these interesting people, but for your special needs son or daughter. I think of the probably thousands of outstanding people I've met because of my daughter that I would never have met otherwise. I always consider myself to be a glass half full kind of guy. I've been criticized for that many times, as a matter of fact, because of that. But I think, you need to go through life with a special needs son or daughter with that mindset. You cannot wallow in despair, because that's really not going to help you or your son or daughter. Keep the faith, work hard. It's not easy. A lot of it is your doing, but there's a lot of people that are going to be able to help you. So keep the faith, and you will get to a great place.
Thanks, Kelly. Great perspective. Back to you, Brian.
Well, I think the two pieces of advice, I probably would echo almost what everybody else had said already, but I think the first thing that I realize is to be open. I kind of have my own saying about always, to live life with an open hand as opposed to a closed fist. When you have an open hand, God's able to put lots of things in. When it's a closed fist, then things just seem to really bounce off. I know, our family has we've lived by faith. We've seen, God intervene in Benjamin's life. I know everyone is not necessarily going to have that perspective, but, we knew that without God, Benjamin has, kind of gone through the ceilings and exceeded expectations. I think for us, we look at, and I know as a dad, I've learned so much, kind of echoing Kelly, from Benjamin, because there's times I'm like, I'm not sure who really has the special needs. Maybe it's me. It's taught me about being compassionate and sensitive. I think I would tell other dads, don't beat yourself up even to get frustrated. There's things that sometimes, you get really upset about or disappointed, or they're not measuring a certain thing. And then I can feel myself kind of getting a check and like, hey, did you forget like what they're dealing with and all the obstacles that he's having to overcome? The second thing I would say that, I've learned the hard way is don't be on an island. Don't isolate yourself. If you've got questions and concerns, again, it's one of the great things I think that, David would not want me to put him up on a pedestal, but I think that so many men, we already have a tendency to go off and be isolated, but there's resources that are available. There's somebody else you could pick up the phone to. Again, Kelly was talking about it. There's so many people I've met across the country because of Benjamin's story that has just been remarkable. And I would hope that other people don't miss out on that. So if you can go ahead and reach out if you're struggling or having a hard time. A lot of families and their marriages don't even make it, with special needs, because the pressure and the stress can be so difficult, even dealing with families and having other kids, that they may feel like they're neglected. So I think having a community of other dads like this is really powerful. And I hope that guys will be open and then be willing to reach out and work together with others.
Brian, great closing comments. Thank you to each of you. It's one of the reasons that I constantly find myself saying, and maybe for the last 10 years, that some of the best parenting that I've witnessed, that's moms as well as dads, are those that are raising kids with special needs. And you're each testimony to that, the commitment that you made. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to share some of your own experiences so that others will benefit and hopefully can emulate, right, you and the experience you've had. And that concludes the 10th of our bi-weekly Dad Zoom calls that take place on the first and third Tuesday of every month. Next call will be on November 3rd, and a little bit more somber topic, but there are plenty of guys in the network, sadly, who have experienced this, actually losing a child. A parent's worst nightmare is to have to bury a child. And I know it'll be well attended because it's a really important issue. And I'm hoping that you can each tune in to join us then as well. Check the schedule for other topics that are coming up. And to the extent that you're curious, you can look back and look at the archive of YouTube videos that we've created for each of the Special Fathers Network Dad Zoom biweekly calls. So thanks again. For additional information, look at the show notes. And there's always more information at the 21stCenturyDads.org website. Thanks again. See you next time.